All right, we're ready to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Toys program. And thank you for everyone sharing your toys in chat. We're going to talk about toys because for all of human history, play has been such an important part of human development. When we're little, it helps us understand how our bodies move. It helps us build relationships, understand the world around us. And humans, like dogs and rats, play our entire lives. So the toys may change, the games may change, but we play our entire lives. The earliest toys found in the archaeological record are over 5,000 years old from the Sumerian Empire. Clay figurines of animals, not very much like this armadillo wearing a giant cowboy hat, but kind of. This is a reconstruction of a toy found in the ruins of the ancient city. Name just flew out of my brain. Vesuvius erupted, Pompeii, the ancient city of Pompeii, which was built a little too close to a volcano. And there were toys like this that happened in 79 AD, about 2,000 years ago. And this toy is made out of different materials, but it's basically exactly the same as this toy. Same toy, 2,000 years later. Toys can be very simple, like a stick or a ball. They can be very complicated, like a video game, or the most complicated and most popular toy of all time, your imagination. Okay, so we're excited to talk about toys. My name is Mitch. I'm here from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And my favorite toy is everything you see behind you. But one I really love is the kendama, which is a version of the ball and cup game, which you find all over the world in so many different cultures. And I'm here with Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Littlepage from the Denver Museum of Miniatures, Dolls, and Toys. And I'm also not great at picking a favorite toy, but recently, other than Super Soakers, because it's summer, I'm really I don't have my original Flying Fairy toy, my original Sky Dancer, but I found this really cool knockoff one. Let's see. It's dangerous to do this close.
Hey. And as you're going, if people would like to share their memories of toys or their favorite toys in the chat, that's great. Keep that going. We'll pay attention as much as we can. And that Sky Dancer toy is a wonderful spinning toy. Like with your registration, you had a toy you can print out and fold yourself. I made this one. It's not very good. This is a whirligig. It's just a paper toy. Then when you drop it, it spins. That was a little hard to see.
You can add a paper clip on the bottom and it will help, or you can try different weights of paper. Get creative.
Awesome. And that's a great example of a spinning toy. And spinning toys have been around forever. You could argue they've been around for more than 67 million years. If you include this toy, which I find all over the sidewalk in my neighborhood. You've probably seen these. There's several different trees in Denver that drop these winged seeds. And a little hard to see here, but when they fall, they make a wonderful swirling motion, very similar to the whirligig that we have folded. And these are, like I said, the earliest ones found around where South Dakota is now, 67 million years old, which means that these winged seeds were falling out of the sky and spinning around when dinosaurs like T-Rex and Triceratops were there. T-Rex probably didn't pick them up because he had those little short arms, but it probably, a seed fell from a tree and spun around and T-Rex was like, wow. Yeah. And we have a very cool video. Let's start out. Should we just start out?
Let's do it.
A very popular spinning toy you're probably all familiar with is a top. And we actually have a very cool video of astronaut Peggy Whitson playing with a top on the International Space Station. And so here we go.
I use the top much like I would on Earth, and it works about the same until it bounces off the floor and starts to float. The top does not touch the floor as it spins, so there's less friction than on Earth. For this reason, the top spins much longer and remains stable. This gyroscopic stability definitely works. Next, I release the top in the air and it turns in a stable manner, moving in any direction that I push it without changing its axis of spin. Conservation of angular momentum keeps the top's axis pointed in the same direction.
So fun. And I just want to mention, That was Peggy Whitson, who holds the record for all American astronauts for total time spent in space. She's flown 3 missions, twice been commander of the ISS. She's awesome. So Spinny Toys.
I was going to say, that's pretty inspirational. And I was just thinking, I want to go to space to spin tops.
Right? It looks super fun, and they spin much longer. And tops have been around for a long time, right, Wendy?
They've been around for a long time. You see wooden tops, you know, 1700s, 1800s. Maybe some of you play dreidel games at Hanukkah. And then there's, you know, things that spin, you know, accidentally. Sometimes you can, if you get a die or something like that, they'll spin. And so I think that that becomes part of it.
Yeah.
Pretty silly.
I was very excited to share with you all the physics behind a spinning top. But what I learned is these are the equations that describe how a top spins.
Yeah.
So we won't go into that too much, but we will talk about some of the basics. Awesome astronaut Peggy Whitson mentioned gyroscopic stability, which kept the top from tipping over. And I have here a gyroscope. We can demonstrate some of the cool things, even on Earth. So this is just a spinning top inside of a little frame. When I do this, you can spin it really fast. And if I make a loop with the string and I hold it like this, you can see that it stays horizontal. And so basically what's happening is when you get something spinning, everything's
impressive.
When you get something spinning, it wants to stay spinning in that same motion. This is a basic law of inertia. When something is in motion, it wants to stay in motion. And in order to turn it, you have to exert a force. You may have all experienced that with another toy, very popular these days, which if you just take a fidget spinner, if you have one, and you move it back and forth, you'll notice you're not feeling any resistance. But if you spin it and you create this gyroscopic motion, as you try to turn it, you'll feel some resistance from the spinning fidget spinner or top or gyroscope or whatever it is. And this is also, by the way, how Frisbees work. If you take a Frisbee, sorry, I'm getting carried away. This is my dog's Frisbee. That's why it's all chewed up. But if you take a Frisbee and you just push it away from your body like this, it won't go very far.
Run.
But if you spin it, it'll go much farther. And that's because as it's spinning, it gets that gyroscopic stability, just like the top in space. And it maintains that position so that it can work like the wing of a plane, where it has an angle of attack. So the air is being pushed down by the Frisbee and the Frisbee can fly through the air. So spinning is so cool. And there's so many cool spinning toys.
I agree. I mean, and I think maybe we should start counting Frisbee time in the park as a science lab.
Definitely.
At least once a year. At least once a year. All right. What do we have? Do we have any more fun favorite toys that have come up, or?
Yeah, so those of you who joined us recently, feel free to share your favorite toys. There's a good chance Wendy has one in her museum.
No, someone mentioned the My Friend doll before we started. Boom, I have it sitting right next to me. Right there.
So how long have dolls been around as toys?
Oh, you find really old dolls, and there's even speculation that some of the chimpanzees and things are making their own dolls now. So maybe it just looks like a stick, but they're carrying it around and they're showing some care for it and sort of parenting, mimicking. So you find definitely along in the ruins of Pompeii, you're going to find dolls. You find them Etruscan things. You find there's very famous, depending on what you want to count as a doll, figures in, even prehistory.
Yeah, so a lot of people mentioned Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars were mentioned earlier, which
also have spinning parts.
There we go. Yeah, which, like this horse, which again is a recreation of one found in the ruins of Pompeii, those are basically the same toy. It's just, instead of riding horses, we started riding cars, and more. And the small cars, I have a Matchbox car somewhere behind me, but I'm not sure where it is.
There's one. I had bigger cars out so they could be seen. This is my current favorite car in the collection.
Very cool. Very cool. So another toy that's been around forever that I mentioned a little while ago was this kendama, which you basically, there's a string and a ball, and you try to catch the ball in the cup, which we'll pretend I did it. Wendy has one there too. And Wendy, you have another interesting version of that, don't you?
Mitch and I had a big conversation about how a lot of times you see similar toys in lots of cultures. So we talked about jump ropes, we can talk about kites. This is another one. I can't do this one at all. I think maybe my oldest brother did it once. And then people I worked with when I worked at a Native American museum, this was made for me. It's a deer leg and toes. And the idea is you swing it up and you catch 1, and then 2, and then 3.
Amazing.
And why do you think this kind of game is so important, Mitch?
Oh,
for history, like long time ago. Why would this kind of thing be important?
You're leading me to the right answer, and I don't know what it is. It is definitely a dexterity building game.
Exactly, that hand-eye coordination. If you had to catch all your own food, I knew you'd get there. If you had to catch all your own food, you really have to practice, because anyone knows the more you play Mario Kart, the better you are at Mario Kart. The more you braid all your doll's hair, the better you are at it. The more you build a dollhouse or a model plane. So all of these things are also teaching us some basic life skills. So Mario Kart might teach you closer or get you excited about programming. Legos might get you excited to be an architect or an engineer. But coordination could help you catch a rabbit.
Exactly. And lots of other stuff. Helps you not trip as much and catch things. Another interesting thing, I just mentioned, I showed you those equations about a spinning top. What's fascinating to me is like people have been making spinning tops and making better spinning tops long before they were able to do all of that math. And similarly, when you catch a ball in the air, there's a crazy amount of physics equations. If you have to solve the problem of like, here comes a ball in the air, where should I put my hand to catch it? That's a lot of math. You got to figure out the arc, you got to figure out the weight of the ball, you got to figure out what the wind resistance is. And it's something that with practice, we're able to make all those calculations in less than a second and catch a ball. But when we try to make a robot do that, it becomes extremely complicated.
It sounds like a lot of programming for a robot.
Yes, yes, for sure. Well, back to this kendama. We showed you the spinning top in space, which worked amazing. But along with the International Toys in Space project, where they flew up a bunch of toys to the International Space Station to see if they worked, they also flew up a kendama. So first, I want you all to make predictions in your mind about how this would work in space. And then Kim is our media specialist. Can you bring up the video of the kendama in space?
On Earth, gravity causes the ball to fall into a cup and to stay there, but not in space. Valeri tries to catch the ball in the cup and then on the spike at the end of the kendama. In all attempts, the ball bounces away from the kendama.
Right? This is a toy that relies on gravity. You have to have the ball being held down into the cup by gravity or it doesn't work. If you continue watching that video, you'll see he does eventually do it, and then he reveals that he put some tape in the little cup and got it to stick. So
you can only go so far.
Solving problems.
When I do this one, I usually accidentally catch it and just goes on.
Somebody asked about the yo-yo in space. So I will tell you, if you Google International Toys in Space, there are a bunch of videos. They do have a yo-yo. The video is very frustrating to me because that astronaut is not very good at a yo-yo. So it does, let me find a good yo-yo here.
I think we might have to bring them into the science museum for our tutorial next time.
So the yo-yo does work in its basic form where it goes up and down, but I was curious if you'd be able to do tricks in space. Like, that yo-yo's wound too tight. Hold on, let me switch yo-yos. This is a yo-yo that was very popular when I was in 4th grade. It's called a Yomega. It's got a series of springs in it that makes it much easier to use, which is an innovation. Yo-yo also an ancient toy. But like a trick like this would not work in space because that requires gravity. But I really wondered about like loop-the-loop type tricks, around the world type tricks. So I don't know, the yo-yo works basically, but I'm not sure how many tricks would work. Somebody needs to send more yo-yos to space, basically what I'm saying. Wendy, we have a question.
Amber asked, when did toys stop being homemade, which is never. I have great toys that have been made all the way up to just a few years ago, but that really happens with the Industrial Revolution and when toys get cheaper, so they can be made. But I got a good homemade toy dagger right here. This is from 1923 from Philadelphia. But that's Industrial Revolution and then post-World War II when things are mass-produced and cheap.
And by the way, there's nothing stopping you from making your own toys.
Yeah.
Something like yo, maybe a little bit complicated, but not necessarily. This is from the collection at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. This is a type of toy called a Galimoto, and this comes from the Congo in Africa, where it is not as easy. Toys are not as cheap and available, so people will collect whatever they can find. This is made of bits of wire and
bottle cap,
brick, whatever they can find. And this is a very cool kinetic toy, which as you roll it along the ground, this guy in the background beats the drum, they pedal the bicycle, and there are all different designs of these that people are making for themselves. So in lots of parts of the world, toys are still primarily homemade.
Yeah, if anyone breaks a flip-flop this summer, see if you can turn it into a sailboat. Like,
that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I saw somebody has a 50-year-old callus from playing with spirographs.
Oh, we have a pre-spirograph toy called a Hootenanny. That's like much more intense. It's metal and much harder to use. But it's interesting to think that a lot of the toys that are so famous had early versions that were too hard, so they got improved on. We see that a lot with Legos. Pre-Legos didn't stick together. Legos can stick together. Although your sculptures, I hear, need some glue.
The sculptures. Yeah, the sculptures we have on display at the museum right now, some of them need to be suspended from the ceiling. Some of them are held together, but they are pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Legos are such a cool toy too. Because
what?
What did you say? Sorry.
Oh no, I was saying that's a perfect crown.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my Lego crown. Yeah, so the sculptures at the museum are pretty incredible, but Legos are so great because you can make anything you want.
I like making mazes. That's my new Lego thing. I like to make mazes and change them around and try to improve on them. Little marble mazes. It's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Karen posted that they lived with a Jamaican family and they made a whirly toy with leaves and a stick from some African customs from generations ago. That's very cool. Yeah, Spinny Toys, like we said, you find them all over the world. Hula hoops too. Maybe. There are definitely hoops you find all over the world in all different cultures. Whether people were putting those on their waist and spinning around is a little harder to know.
There's an older game called Hoop and Stick, which is another coordination game. And there's an Iroquois game that's also a hoop. And you have to try to run and throw things through the hoop to get points. It's real fun, real hard.
That does sound really fun. How do you play Hoop and Stick?
Hoop and Stick was considered a girls' game in the 1800s, and it's a wide band banded hoop made out of wood, and then you would roll it, and you would roll it with a stick. So it takes actually a lot of coordination to keep it going, and I think there was passing games and different aspects like that as well, for sure.
Awesome. So fun.
All right. Oh my goodness. There's so many. The comments, they're coming in.
Yeah.
I've got a balancing toy, which is another fun part of that gyroscopic. It's not gyroscopic, but you know, the balance and what does that do for you?
Yeah. So that's a very cool physics thing where it is simply the wings counterbalance the body, but the way that it's designed makes it look like a magic trick, which is super fun.
I'm magic. I'm magic.
Except Wendy is actually magic. I saw a great question here about toys that have been banned or considered taboo. And right behind Wendy, we have a chemistry set from the 1920s.
Yeah, this is pretty serious, guys. Let's see if I can get you a little closer. So we actually brought in, we didn't know if it had happened when it was originally accessioned. So we brought in a chemistry teacher to go through and make sure that all the chemicals were stable, because the science experiments in here are like high school level, maybe higher. There's chemical reactions to start fires and create toxic substances. So it definitely would have helped you with those science grades.
Yeah, when those chemistry sets came out, what everyone wanted to do was make things explode or make colorful smoke or make fire. And my favorite stories, they did eventually be taken off the market because having kids light things on fire and make things explode all the time, not a terribly great idea. There was even one with, ooh, a lot of words. There was even one with a Geiger counter and radioactive samples in there that you could test, which was fun. But my favorite story is there was a little boy in England, I think he was 10 years old, and he had a science experiment he wanted to show to his friends. So he stuck the chemicals in his pocket and he went to church. And while he was sitting there, his body heat was enough to cause a chemical reaction. So the chemicals ignited in his pants. So his pants caught fire while he was sitting there, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, here's one on how to make illuminating gas.
Ooh.
And there's a chapter in here I know about poisonous gases, which would have been really important right after World War I, would have been something that people are really thinking about.
Shameless plug here, but if you're looking for fun science experiments you can do at home with stuff you probably already have, check out the DM&S YouTube channel. We've got lots of fun videos. And Wendy also has a bunch of fun videos.
Yeah, I take people through the collection. I teach some arts classes. There's even one on the marble mazes I was talking about. You know, you can put in your requests. I'm a really small staff, so I'll probably get it. And if I have the time, you know, I found that doll in like a matter of 2 minutes. So.
Nice. And I see some people love their chemistry sets. And that's one of the things, there are a lot of chemists working today, a lot of high profile scientists who were inspired to go into the sciences because of their very dangerous chemistry sets. So kind of a mixed bag there.
I know we have a 3-year-old on here who's playing Go, so that's a lot of math skills. I know Mitch likes Go.
Here's my Go board.
Yeah, that's a really challenging game. And I have actually, I know we've been talking about pandemic times a lot and making your own toys. And you know what one of the things kids were probably playing with during the last pandemic that I have right behind me?
What?
Crayons. Crayons were pretty new. So I have a box here of crayons that are probably about 100 years old, and they're by the Crayola company. And they're not looking real great. I'm not gonna lie. I'll pull them out for you here. Look at that. They're a little crusty.
100-year-old crayons.
But that looks pretty familiar. I like the idea that kids in 1918 were doing some of the same stuff that we're doing now.
Wendy, do you know of other toys that were banned or?
Banned lawn darts.
Lawn
darts, aqua dots, because they had a chemical in them that was a really dangerous chemical if kids ate them. And you know, while an older kid would know not to put a toy in their mouth, they might have a younger sibling and it can make them really sick. Definitely the game with all of the uranium is no longer around. We have, you know, there's the little mazes and things. We have one that has mercury in it. They don't like to play with mercury much anymore. Lead toys is a really common one. And even if you or your parents were kids in the 80s, lead paint was still a big issue, and we still hear about it sometimes too.
Running a little short on time, and one thing I definitely wanted to learn from Wendy is I have this old Mickey Mouse toy from 1975 that doesn't have any batteries or anything, and yet when you pull the string, he talks.
Well, that's kind of like it winds up a music box. So Yeah, so you know it's going to kind of play back, you know, when you crank a music box. It's a similar idea. That might be closer to a record. This is just a very glamorous mod girl from the 60s, this doll. But she's got this cool compartment. And I don't know if anyone knows records, but she actually has records that you can put in. Can anyone see the little grooves on there?
Yes.
So every one of these plays different songs, and I have a whole box of them, and they're all these super cool colors. Let's see. I pulled the black one out on top, but you know, cool colors, and you can trade them in and out. And then she can say different things. But the record player, you know, this one has batteries. It has a little needle that catches all of those grooves, and so you can hear the noise.
So cool.
And then later you get into digital. Teddy Ruxpin used a tape player, a cassette tape. So that's like a newer version, but still seems very outdated to all the digital toys we have today.
Right. And toys that will respond to you and learn words and stuff.
Oh, I remember when Furbies were the latest.
I see a comment that Mickey is a little disturbing. And neither of us have this in our museum, which is a shame, but if you want to see a really terrifying talking doll, the very first talking doll was designed by Thomas Edison himself, and it looks and sounds so scary.
Yeah.
And nobody bought it, and he was very ashamed of it. So there are very few available, but I recommend looking up Thomas Edison's talking doll.
I would say any old recording sound great. They're recording in wax, and you know that that's really soft if you have anything in the Colorado sun. So
right. All right, well, we're running out of time. We just wanted to talk about, we had in our teaser that there is an R2-D2 that has been to space, and I couldn't convince the collections people in my museum to let me play with it. It's back on Earth now, but we do have a cool photo of R2-D2 in space. That was you saw a fossilized remain of a winged seed. But there you see that floating R2-D2, and that astronaut right behind it is Kjell Lindgren. And R2-D2 is on loan to the Museum of Nature and Science from Kjell Lindgren's son. And I believe they're still making decisions, but when we reopen Space Odyssey in the middle of November, you'll get to come and see a plush R2-D2 that actually spent 3 months on the International Space Station. And if you watched that recent SpaceX Dragon launch, you may have seen that those astronauts had a sparkly purple dinosaur with them. Those aren't just because they want to have fun up there. That is part of it. But they're strapped in so tight for safety that once they get into microgravity, once they get into an orbit around Earth, they want to test the gravity. And so they want to have something that they can throw up in the air and have it float around. And it has to be something soft so it won't bump into things and accidentally press buttons and stuff like that. So toys going up to the International Space Station is actually pretty common.
I love that because I take my teddy bear on all my big adventures.
That's right. So next time you're going to space, make sure you grab your favorite stuffed animal. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and the Denver Museum of Miniatures, Dolls, and Toys. And keep playing with all your toys and have a wonderful time. And thank you so much for joining us.